Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really profound cautionary tale from the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, and honestly, it reads almost like a psychological thriller. We're looking at the story of a highly accomplished monk, a guy who reached just incredible spiritual heights, only to totally plummet and find himself destined for the absolute deepest, most excruciating realm of hell. It's a completely striking examination of how our spiritual foundations can crumble. Okay, so let's just dive right into this bizarre paradox. How exactly does someone who's dedicated their entire life to spiritual practice, someone who has seemingly mastered their own mind, end up completely destroying their spiritual future? Well, we're going to uncover the shocking fate of the monk Sunaksatra, and more importantly, decode the exact mechanics of his downfall so we can really understand the fragility of our own minds. Chapter 1. The Mystery of Sunasastra's Fall. To understand this philosophical tragedy, we first need to look at exactly who Sunasastrata was before his spiritual collapse. And he wasn't just a casual observer or some struggling novice. You have to consider the sheer contrast between his spiritual resume and the Buddha's dire prophecy. Sunasastrata had successfully learned, memorized, and could eloquently explain all 12 divisions of Buddhist scripture. And even more impressively, he had actually attained the fourth jhana, which is this state of extraordinarily deep, purified meditation where the mind is perfectly equanimous and radiant. Yet despite all of that, the Buddha explicitly prophesied that this very same monk had severed all of his good roots and was bound for avicii, literally the lowest level of hell. How in the world do you go from perfect meditative stillness to absolute spiritual ruin? Chapter 2. The Poison of Indolence and Bad Influences. The sutra doesn't just tell us he fell. It actually gives us a highly analytical breakdown of exactly why. It pinpoints two specific poisons that destroyed his spiritual foundation from the inside out. The first culprit is indolence, or in the original text, fengyi. And listen, this isn't just, taking a day off. This is a highly dangerous internal poison. It's carelessness, it's slacking in your spiritual practice, and fundamentally, it's losing your disciplined focus. You see, Sunaksatra got arrogant with his meditative achievements. He totally let his guard down. He stopped fiercely protecting his mind because he assumed his past achievements made him bulletproof. The second culprit is bad influences, or ijishi. This refers to false friends, misguided teachers, or in Sunasastra's case, heretical ascetics who actively denied the basic laws of karma and cause and effect. Because Sunasastra's mind was already weakened by his own laziness, his own indolence, he became incredibly susceptible to these toxic external influences. And this creates a terrifying, step-by-step downward spiral. It perfectly illustrates how external bad company leads directly to internal ruin. Step 1, he associates with these bad influences. Step 2, this association breeds even more indolence, and he just stops practicing properly. Step 3, and honestly this is the scary part, he literally loses his meditative states. That fourth jhana, it totally vanishes because his mind is no longer pure. And finally, step 4, to justify his newly fallen state, he fully adopts these evil views, actively preaching that there's no cause and effect, no consequences for actions, and no such thing as enlightenment. To show you just how deep this delusion really went, the sutra shares this completely wild anecdote. So Sunaksatra started idolizing a heretical ascetic named Kudrasti. The Buddha, trying to break Sunaksatra's delusion, accurately predicted that Kudrasti wasn't a saint at all, but a total fraud who was going to die of indigestion in exactly 7 days and be reborn as a miserable, vomit-eating ghost in the cold forest. Hearing this, Kudrasti actually tried to fast for 6 days just to prove the Buddha wrong, but on the 7th day, he caved, ate black honey, drank cold water, got a massive stomachache, and died, exactly as predicted. Sunaksatra literally went to the forest, saw Kudrasti's ghost with his own eyes, and the ghost even confirmed the Buddha was right. Yet, when he went back to the Buddha, Sunaksatra deliberately lied to his face, claiming his idol had ascended to heaven. He was so poisoned by bad influences that even when faced with undeniable, supernatural proof, he just stubbornly refused to believe in cause and effect. Chapter 3. Severing Good Roots and the Ishantika. This stubborn, willful denial brings us to one of the absolutely most severe concepts in Buddhist theology. It's the ultimate consequence of letting indolence and bad influences run rampant. By constantly hanging around bad friends and actively preaching that actions have no consequences, Sanakasatra severed his good roots completely. In Buddhist thought, he transformed into an Aichantika. An Aichantika is a being who has so thoroughly destroyed their foundation of goodness that they lack the current capacity to achieve enlightenment. Their spiritual compass is just completely shattered. And this brilliantly sets up the Buddha's visceral analogy for the situation. Imagine a man entirely submerged in a vile, disgusting cesspool. A compassionate friend reaches in, desperately trying to find even a single hair on the man's head to grab onto and pull him to safety. But the man is completely submerged, bald, covered in filth. There is literally nothing to grab. The Buddha says he searched Sunakshatra's mind for even a single hair of good roots to save him from hell, but because of his extreme indolence and his embrace of evil views, there was simply nothing left to hold on to. Chapter 4. Why did the Buddha keep him? Now, if you're following along, a really logical question comes up. If Sonakshatra was this toxic, this deeply infected by bad influences and ultimately doomed, why on earth did the Buddha allow him to be his personal attendant? The astonishing fact here is that the Buddha deliberately kept Sonakshatra by his side, traveling with him for a full 20 years. 20 years with someone actively working against the teachings. The crucial point to understand is that keeping him close was actually an act of profound skillful means, what the text calls the Buddha's fifth power, the power of resolution and foresight. You see, the Buddha saw that if he simply banished Sonakshatra, this incredibly charismatic but deeply misguided man would go on to inherit a kingdom. He would then use that immense royal power to aggressively destroy the teachings and corrupt millions of people. By keeping him as an attendant, the Buddha was essentially containing the blast radius. He sacrificed his own comfort, enduring Sonaksatra's extreme selfishness, just to protect the good roots of countless other vulnerable beings from his toxic influence. Chapter 5. Profound Lessons on Protecting Good Roots. This incredible story brings us to the broader teachings in the sutra about how the Buddha interacts with different types of spiritual capacities. The text uses these striking analogies of suns, fields, and patience to map out exactly how the Buddha prioritizes his teachings. Naturally, looking at the best category, a parent teaches their obedient, wise son first. A farmer plants the fertile, rock-free field first. These represent the bodhisattvas. Moving to the middle, we have the Shravakas, who require a bit more effort, kind of like a rocky field. But what about the absolute worst category? The disobedient, foolish son, the barren field full of weeds, the seemingly incurable patient. These represent the Ishantikas, like Sonakshatra. So does the Buddha just abandon them? The answer is a resounding no. Even for the Aichantikas, the Buddhist teachings are never wasted. The Buddha explicitly states that he still teaches them out of sheer, boundless pity. Even if that barren field yields absolutely no harvest in this lifetime, the Buddha is planting seeds deep down in the soil for distant future lives. The core nature of a living being, their Buddha nature, can never be permanently destroyed, even if their current good roots are completely severed. What you really need to take away from this explainer is the absolute necessity of guarding your spiritual environment. Sonaksatra's story is a stark warning. Never, ever underestimate the slow, eroding danger of indolence, of fungi. Carelessness opens the door, and once that door is open, bad spiritual influences, those false friends and toxic views, will rush right in and sever your good roots. You have to actively protect your mind, cultivate discipline, and surround yourself with truth, while also recognizing the vast, impartial compassion of the Buddha, who never truly gives up on anyone. It leaves us with a haunting yet highly motivating realization. If someone that's spiritually advanced, someone who meditated in the profound stillness of the fourth jhana right alongside the Buddha himself, could fall so incredibly far just by getting a little lazy and hanging out with the wrong people, what are we doing right now to protect our own minds? How fiercely are you guarding your good roots today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep that question with you as you go about your day.